I can literally, when I read the prayer, Lisa, I can literally feel the frequency of the words come into my eyes, down to my heart, and anchor there as I'm saying them and as the records are open. And that's how you know you're in the records is because there is a very profound shift that energetically takes place. I mean, it is some of the highest frequency you can ever experience because it is purity, it is unconditional love. And so when you enter into that field of energy, you're surrounded, you're imbued with it. It's every aspect of who you are. It's pretty profound.
Welcome to the show. I am so excited to introduce Rose Marie Swanson. She's an Akashic record. I can't even say it. Sorry about that. Like I say it every day. The Akashic Records consultant, in which she channels the Akashic Records. And I am thrilled to have her here and to pick her brain and learn more about what she does in her story. So, Rosemarie, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Lisa. I really appreciate it. I look forward to this.
Well, I'm thrilled. I'm so excited. So, how long have you been channeling the Akashic Records?
Probably almost 40 years now.
Excuse me, how long?
About 40 years.
A day or two, then. Yeah, you're not a novice by any means, are you?
No, it's my life.
It
It's my life.
is. And that's why I wanted to have you here, because you have a different perspective than a lot of people, obviously due to all the ins and the outs and the amount of time that it takes to become more in tune with the records and the way that the information is received. But even more important to me is the way that we interpret it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, you understand. Yeah, and and due to our experience and how long we've been doing this, we've learned to understand
Mm-hmm.
how these things work where other people may not. And that's kind of what I'm going to tap into. Um, this is the Akashic Records, and those of us who do this work. We can see the Akashic field a little bit differently than other people do because of the type of work we do. And I think it's important for people to see that there's a bigger picture than typically what's presented on TV
Yes.
and the little snippets that mention the Akashic field. And I think that you and I are both, I call us advocates for the Akashic Records,
Yes. Indeed.
because we're so passionate about what and who they are. And this is kind of what I want to share today. And I want your input on this little bit of information. So, how did you find out about the Akashic Records?
Um, I formally found out about them through a woman I was staying with during another healing workshop, and she handed me a flyer and said, "Spirit said you need to take this class." So that was the formal introduction. I had experienced the records long before that. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and during my sessions with my clients, Mary Magdalene would come in and give me information. And when I repeated the information verbatim for my clients, I saw some pretty amazing miracles take place.
Mm.
It wasn't until after I took classes that I found out that I was actually receiving information from the records during
Oh,
that. So,
yeah, nice. So,
yeah.
your history, you said, did you do psychotherapy as well or just hypnotherapy?
I do hypnotherapy. I do all kinds of spiritual counseling. I work in the quantum realms. I do healing as well as doing the Akashic Records.
Okay. So, how do you channel the Akashic Records?
Well, it's interesting to use that word channel because, of course, it's some of the old school people are really against the word channel, but you are actually bringing in the information you can use channel. I see it as there's literally an opening that comes from spirit down in through my crown into my heart. So when I receive information, I can either hear words, or it's just a knowing, or I see a visual. I can see a movie or a picture and present it to the client, and then it's up to the client to interpret whatever that means.
Mhm. So, how do you connect to the Akashic field?
Ah, I was taught a very sacred prayer. I know there's a lot of different modalities out there that say you can do all these different things, but this prayer is a very ancient prayer that was given back in the early 70s to Johnny, and Johnny is the one that taught my teacher, Mary Parker. And that's another whole story that we can go into in another time.
And we will.
Yeah. But it is through this very ancient prayer that I'm able to receive permission to open either my records or somebody else's records, and go in and ask questions and receive wisdom for them.
And I do want to share that Rosemarie and I do the same
Yes.
prayer. And my teacher learned the same system. And
Yes.
so Rosemarie and I, which is another reason why I wanted to talk to her, because we have that same connection in how we do open the records in that process. And I think it's kind of special.
Yeah. It is. And I've used, there's many prayers out there,
Mhm.
Lisa, and I've tried several of them, and yeah, after 40 years of my experience, I have to say our prayer is the most powerful prayer that
Yeah.
I've experienced.
And I agree. And why do you think, it's now that we're on the subject, so, and because you just said a really key word, that there's so many different ways that we can connect,
Yes.
but why you and I feel like this method works the best for us. So when you said that you think this prayer is the most effective way, is that how you
Hmm.
said it? So
Yes.
it kind of delve into that, the meaning of that.
So my experience of entering into the Akashic Records, it's like a very complex lock. There's a lot of tumblers and everything, and every word of the prayer holds a frequency. And to read that prayer opens the frequencies to the Akashic Records. It opens the door to the field, so to speak. And I use that language because it's easier for most people to understand. There's really no door, but that's the best way to explain it. So for every word in a very specific order opens that lock. If you get one word out of place, it's not going to open that lock.
Yeah. And the vibrational and the way it's said. So it's
Yes,
not even just the words, but it's the
right.
rhythm that the words need to be said in as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
I can
significant.
literally, when I read the prayer, Lisa, I can literally feel the frequency of the words come into my eyes, down to my heart,
Hmm.
and anchor there as I'm saying them and as the records are open.
Absolutely. And I feel the same way. And I feel the energy spin. I can feel everything opening up.
Yeah.
Exactly. We may feel it differently, but we recognize that there's a shift and that
Yes.
we did open something up,
Yes.
within us to create this connection.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that's how you know you're in the records, is
Hmm.
because there is a very profound shift
Yeah.
that energetically takes place. I
Yeah.
mean, it is some of the highest frequency you can ever experience because it is purity, it is unconditional love. And so when you enter into that field of energy, you're surrounded, you're imbued with it. It's every aspect of who you are. It's
Mhm.
pretty profound.
Well, I'm going to get a little bit off track and we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but you just you just hit on something that is so extremely important to me. And people don't understand this thing that you just said about love.
Hmm.
And it's so interesting with the experience that I've had, with people asking me questions and the way that the types of questions that people use. And they may ask something, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but what you and I would feel is a little bit more basic.
Yeah.
And this is not meant to sound negative or any other way, but it's just the types of questions that you can ask. And so for me, and I'm sure you're exactly the same way, people don't realize the depth or the consistency of what the Akashic field is. And so what people have a tendency to think is that the records hold all of the information. So we can ask questions like, who built the pyramids?
Yeah.
Tell us the story about Atlantis.
Yeah.
Or, those questions that are important to a lot of people. But that leads into the depth
Yes.
of what the Akashic field is.
Yes.
So let's talk about the depth.
Oh, good. So, so yummy.
Yeah.
As a teacher, I do teach people how to open their own records. So this is an area I really love delving into. So when you look at asking a question in the records, what is your motivation for asking it, first of all? It's very important because your motivation will tell you the depth of where you're going to go with the records.
Mhm.
You can ask questions that are broad-based and get broad-based answers. But if you get really concise in what you're asking, then the masters know where to go into the Akashic Records in order to get the concise piece of information you want.
Mhm.
So it's how you ask the question. It's your motivation behind the question. And and a lot of it also is to where you're at. What level are you at? What are you ready to receive? Can you really receive? Um, I'll give you a good example. Who was I in a past life? A past life. Well, Queen of Sheba. All right. Well, what does that mean? What good is that? That's what I call a frou-frou answer.
Mhm.
It's interesting information. But if you're really digging deeper and you say, okay, what am I supposed to take from that lifetime and bring it forward into this lifetime to consist me in fulfilling my purpose?
Mhm.
That's a whole different level. I mean, even saying that makes the hair stand up on my
Yeah,
arm.
I'm getting goosebumps
Yeah.
too. Isn't that
So
interesting?
again,
Yeah.
you begin to realize that you can ask an initial question, but it's all the other questions that come with it
Mhm.
that take you into the depth.
Mhm.
Again, it depends on what you're ready for as well. So
Yeah.
somebody only wants to know their Queen of Sheba. Somebody really wants to know how to utilize it.
Mhm.
So it depends on the person.
Yeah, from the very beginning when I started doing this more than 20 years ago, I always felt like I call it spiritual psychology,
Yes.
because it can dig so deep into, what we're existing in today that people really don't understand that depth.
Yeah.
And I think this is really what I want to share and expand on, and help people to understand that this isn't just a surface type
Right.
source of information, that it can dig down into the core. I mean, it can
Yes.
tell you where your trauma began. It can tell
Yes.
you how to resolve that, and all
Yeah.
of those roads. And that's really what I wanted to tap into, with you, and being able to expand on how people perceive the Akashic field.
Well, a lot of people think that we predict the future and we don't. So
Mhm.
that's foremost. We don't, we're not psychics. We don't predict the future. However, having said that, if you ask the right questions, you can get the guidance to get you where you want to go. I had a client that wanted to, she is a jewelry designer. She wanted a piece of jewelry in a famous magazine, and she would come to me and ask me very concise questions. Which which pictures of my jewelry should be in this portfolio? Out of these people, who am I to send that portfolio to? What day of the week? What time of the day? I mean, she got very concise, and she ended up with one of her necklaces in Elle Accessory
Mm.
magazine. So it can guide you very concisely if you're willing to ask the questions and take the time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it save people's lives. I've seen it keep people from making mistakes by, and interestingly enough, the first session I ever did was at a fair, a spiritual fair, and it was a 15-minute session. And the woman's question was, am I going to outlive my husband? Right? We don't ask yes or no questions because they're very misleading, first of
Mm-hmm.
all. But I immediately got no. And I told him, I says, I'm not telling this lady no. You need to give it to me in a way that I'm comfortable with giving it to her, where it's not harmful, because I felt uncomfortable with it. And
Mm-hmm.
they did it. They showed me a black and white movie.
Mm-hmm.
And in that black and white movie, I described it to her. And once I literally watched the color drain out of this woman's face.
Mm-hmm.
And she quit crying. She told me that they would have, her husband was in an accident and he was paralyzed from the waist down. They would have tremendously violent arguments where he would throw things at her, and she would leave, and she'd get on her bike and ride down the street. And the movie was of somebody on a bike riding recklessly and a car hitting him.
Mm-hmm.
So that told her to stop that. And
Mm-hmm.
her comment before she left was, I'll never do that again.
Yeah.
So I know it saved this woman's life.
Mm-hmm.
So, I could go on with stories after stories after story of people finding their purpose because they didn't stop at what is my life's purpose?
Right.
Because that's a
And
broad question.
it is. And, and not only, it's a broad question, and the purpose is, there's so many different meanings to the
Yes.
word, what is my purpose?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that can be a challenge for people that are receiving the information sometimes too, because it's not what they were expecting that their purpose is.
Right. Well, I often ask people, is that really what they're wanting to ask?
Mm-hmm.
Can you narrow that down for me?
Mm-hmm.
So we can get more concise information, because a broad question is only going to give you a broad answer.
Yeah, and that's important to recognize too. And I understand that people don't want to give up too much information,
Right.
because they don't trust us. They
Yes.
think, well, you said this, and so I said this to you, so this is where you got the answer from. But sometimes it's needed,
Yes.
in the sense that like I may have somebody ask about somebody in their life. Let's say, well, let me narrow it down. They're saying they'll ask something about a job, and
Yes.
then I'll get the answer. Well, you have multiple jobs, so which one are you referring to?
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And to where, okay, well, we need to narrow this down a little bit to be more specific,
Yeah.
because, when we talk about past relationships, well, you've had a number of past relationships. You've had a number of romantic relationships. So we have to narrow it down to, what are you actually referring to?
Yeah, and that's a very typical question, is for someone to come in and ask, what are my past life with so and so,
Mm-hmm. It
or
is.
a brother or a friend or whatever, and typically the answer is, well, you've had 7 or 8, 100 lifetimes with this person. Is there something specific you would like to ask about it?
Right. Right.
So that, as a good consultant, our job is to assist the person in narrowing down, what is it you really, truly want to know? The
Mm-hmm.
profoundness and the assistance one can receive in the Akashic Records is beyond words as
Mm-hmm.
far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to ask the right questions in order to receive the right answers.
Yeah. Well, receive. That's
Yes.
another good one.
Yes.
Because you had mentioned, the state of mind that the
Yes.
person is that's receiving the information, and that's kind of twofold.
Hmm.
Because if I'm asking a question and I have a specific answer that I think
Yeah.
should be said to me there that I'm expecting in return, then it can kind of shake me up a little bit when I'm not hearing exactly what I want to hear.
Yeah. And that happens more than one would think.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, people come in wanting to receive permission to take a path in their life, and they're expecting to receive it, and when they don't receive it, then they go like, well, what am I supposed to do now?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to unwind what is it they're really wanting to know, and why. Again, the motive behind
Mm-hmm.
it. Why are you really asking this question? What is it you're really wanting to know? Because you're not asking what you're wanting to know.
Yeah. And they may not know how to ask the question either. And they may not want, usually it's relationship related questions, stuff like that, job
But see,
related.
that's the beauty of the records. If you don't know how to ask, then ask.
How
You
do I need to
know,
ask?
in the dialogue, I have this situation going on. I'm not sure what to ask about it, but this is the outcome I would like to see. How should I ask the question, or what should I ask?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the masters, teachers, and loved ones are there to assist us. And if you ask them for help, they'll give it to you.
Mm-hmm. Well, you just walked into the next question. The masters, teachers, and loved ones. So this is, the other part of the Akashic Records, the field that a lot of people are not aware of. Do they have guides? Is the Akashic field full
Yes.
of guides, or is it just library books?
Yeah, yeah. So it's not library books, and I know that's how a lot of people are trained, is that just a huge library, and even my webmaster, when I say I'm teaching a class, will show a picture of a library, right?
Yep.
Because what people commonly recognize, but that's not what it is. It's a
Mhm.
field. It's a frequency field that records the energy of
Yep.
everything, no matter what it is, no matter how minute or how large, it's recorded.
Mhm.
And there are reasons for that, which we won't get into today. But the field is actually anchored into the DNA of your body. So oftentimes I feel it's almost as if I'm following a note of music,
Mhm.
and reaching out to receive for the masters to tell me what it is. We don't call them guides typically because people think of guides differently. They think of maybe it's somebody that's passed away that's in their life, and that's who's talking to them. And that's not who we talk to. There are dedicated beings of light that are there to assist us, and they love us dearly. So the information is always very beautifully, very lovingly put. So there are there's a hierarchy. There's masters, teachers, and loved ones. There's lords of the Akashic Records, which is over the field. It's a language so that our brains can understand it. That's all it is.
Mhm.
It's
Okay.
much more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's so interesting that people that tell the stories, you get little blippets of information on Gaia TV or, in those types of things in those shows, and they just touch on the Akashic field. People that some people that have had near death experiences that walk into a library and they
Yeah,
think that that's the Akashic field
yeah,
when there's so much more there than just this one particular room that people are so not aware of. And that's, I feel, is important for us to share this message so that
Yeah.
people truly can understand that it's not just a room in a book, that it's so much
Oh,
more.
if you look at your records as a tapestry of your life, and that tapestry is woven into your family's tapestry. Your family's tapestry is woven that generation. It's woven into your community. It's woven into your city. It's woven into your country. It's woven into the planet. It's woven into the solar system. It's woven into that which is beyond the solar system. So it goes beyond our ability to understand in our brain's limited capacity of
Mm-hmm.
what exactly it really truly is. I've asked to see what the records look like, and the vastness took my breath away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's an amazing understanding,
Yeah,
of what is.
yeah,
And I think that the other thing, and the reason why the records are so special to me, is the other thing that you tapped into is the love that it holds.
yes,
And and I know that you're just the same way. As many times as I've opened records and have given readings to people, shared information, there has never been one time that the records have said anything negative.
right,
And
right,
well, our interpretation of negative.
right,
It's never been that anybody's at fault. It's always that we are exactly perfect and
yes,
that we are the love. And that's I think that's another misunderstanding, that when people get readings from, let's do a tarot reading just for example, and people recognize, or they just associate it with just the same level that we're on earth,
right,
and they truly don't understand these beautiful beings that are the fullest capacity of
right,
love and how much they love us.
right.
And that's that I think that that's important for me to get that message across,
Yeah,
that that there is a source of energy out there that is of the purest form of unconditional love.
yeah. They don't live in the dynamics of the third dimension where there's right, wrong, where there's judgment, where there's condemnation or shame or any of that. That level of frequency does not exist within the dynamics of the records at all.
Yeah, it makes us want to stay there.
Yes.
And
And
that may be why we're a little bit partial to them and their guidance, and being
yes,
able to stand in that energy. And
yeah,
I can remember when I was learning how to open the records and absorbing the energy,
hmm,
and how, because that energy is such a high frequency,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, how it'd wear you out.
yeah, yeah. I often think it's funny when a student says, "Well, I didn't open the records today because I didn't know what to ask," and I go, "Are you kidding me?" Just sit in the energy,
Hmm.
be in that love, because whatever you're exposed to changes the frequency of your body.
Hmm.
Just the way this dimension of reality is about. So the more you stay in it, and it's the reason why when you first learn to open the records, why you get tired so easy.
Yep.
It's because the human body is dense. The record's energy is very light. It's very high vibrational frequency.
Hmm.
But once you begin to get used to it, it lifts you
Yep.
from wherever you're at. It lifts you up. And until when you're in it often enough, you get lifted up to their level,
Hmm.
to where you're in that absolute love.
Yep.
And when you're in that absolute love, you look at the world differently, because you don't judge,
Hmm.
you don't condemn people, whoever they are or whatever they're doing. You see a greater picture. You move into the quantum field, which
Hmm.
is very different from the field of energy we live in daily.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a beautiful place to be.
Yes, it is.
So, how do you feel that the guides, masters,
Mhm.
after I should have said guides, masters, loved ones, and teachers, how
Yes.
how do they help us navigate on a daily basis? I mean, do you feel like they may be sending us messages at any point? Do you feel like they can help take us down a road? Are they the ones that are saying, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, or yeah, do that?
All of the above.
Okay.
All of the above. I've been working in the records long enough that I feel that they're really companions to me.
Mm-hmm.
They're no longer separate. There's the difference between when I formally open the records and when I'm not formally in the records. But even when I'm not formally in the records, they're still with me because I've made that connection to them. The depth of our relationship is in such that they are there all the time, and they do guide me in every day. And the understanding is there's a reason for everything that takes place in your life.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had I have such gratitude for them and their guidance through all the challenges of my life and how they've made a lot of challenges much easier
Yeah.
because I can go into greater understanding of why something's taking place, why somebody behaved or acted the way they acted,
Mm-hmm.
and move into a level of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
That the peace that can be imbued with all of that is just amazing, just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and you're giving me chills again too. The thing about it as well, I mean, we're talking about moving into this fifth dimensional energy, but when you really truly understand that energy that is within the field and what we have the ability to absorb and live in
Yes,
is that. It's the
yes,
unconditional love, it's the non judgment, it's, the place of staying within the heart and the connectedness of all things. And it's so intertwined that, again, people don't grasp this concept at all. I've never heard anybody say anything about
no,
how vast and how it stands within us and how
yes,
it can truly shift our presence, if we're aware of it and allow it to be done.
yes.
And
And that's the key is to have the awareness and then move into the allowingness.
absolutely, absolutely, yes, good answer. I like that answer. So, what do you feel that the most misunderstood perception or part of the Akashic field is?
Hmm. I think in general, there's a misconception about what they are and how powerful they can be. Um, I think people are beginning to understand it, but certainly back when I first got into it, most people would glaze over. They would not even know what I was talking about. Now people begin to understand that there is the technology, for the lack of a better term, to be able to go in and access divinity in such a profound way. But they still don't understand the depths of what the Akashic Records can offer one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And until you experience yourself, it's very hard to explain.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
really hard.
And it really is because, like what we're sitting here talking about, what we're saying is nothing like what you'll see on TV.
No. Mm-mm.
Nothing. It is completely different, and it's a completely different experience than what's I'm going to say advertised.
Yes. Yes.
so, so how? Tell me different ways that the Akashic records can be used, because, like, you know what I'm going to say? Going
No,
into meetings,
yes.
living
Yes.
your everyday life.
Yes. So that's the beauty of the prayer and the ability to work with the records the way we do now. We don't have the time to go sit in a mountain in a cave to receive enlightenment or to receive wisdom. With this ability, you can be in your kitchen washing dishes and be in the records and talk to the masters and ask. You can ask things like, what am I to know today that will assist me in my day? I have a meeting I'm going to. Can you give me information that will help me go through this meeting and get the highest result possible? Um, I've used the records when I know I'm going into the situation where it might be a little confrontational, to ask them to assist me when I go into it, to stay in my heart and be as loving as possible. I've used the records when my husband was dying of throat cancer and helping me maintain stability and balance and be able to be present. I believe it helped me keep my sanity through that 3-year battle of cancer. Um, I've seen it save people's lives. Um, I've seen it resolve confusion for people, which is very important because you have a dynamic and you don't understand what it is. When you receive the answer of what's creating that dynamic, then the power it holds falls apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've seen that happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, if that alone would be powerful in and of itself. So there are no limits to what can be accomplished within the dynamics of the Akashic Records.
Yeah.
That's how powerful they can be.
Yep. And again, I think that that's so misunderstood.
Yes.
So, did we all receive the messages? So let's say, everybody that channels the Akashic Records or taps into the Akashic field, did we all receive the information the same way?
No, no. Everybody receives differently. It depends on where you're at to how you're going to receive it. We all have different what they're called clairs. Some people are more clairvoyant, so some people are more clairaudient, and you'll tend to move into being able to receive the information that way. And it's different for everybody. I had a student that her master's talked to her in poetry because she wrote. I had another student that they gave her flow charts because that was what she loved. I had another student that received everything from a very scientific point of view. I had another student who thought she received nothing until I put a piece of paper in front of her and asked her to draw something outside the records. She drew like a kindergartner. Inside the records, she drew like she was a professional artist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we all receive differently, and there's no right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It is what's right for you in that moment. In the beginning, I only received through knowing. It's only through the experience and what the work I've done on myself that's allowed me to open different channels of being able to receive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all very different, and there is truly no right and wrong way to receive.
Well, and I also think that, the type of information that we get is where we are as
Yes.
as the person. I think that's another misunderstanding too. If I'm and again, I think you and I probably are both the same way because we've been doing this so long and understanding letting go of the baggage. That we have to work on letting go of the old belief systems and what we perceive the world to be. When we first started this work, we had a specific idea of who we were and what society, basically we accepted what society put on us, and all of those things that we talk about a lot, and being able to shed those old belief systems that keep us so confined. And, it's so funny because I can remember, when I first started doing the records, the first thing they kept saying is that you need to get out of the box.
Yeah.
You need to get out of the box. Well, at the
Yeah.
time, I didn't understand it, but I sure do 20 years later. I get
Yeah.
it now.
Hindsight's always 2020, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah,
So,
I was cleaning a file cabinet out and pulled out some journals that I wrote, and this was before I even started working in the records. And when I read it, I was literally shocked because I did not recognize who wrote them
yeah,
because I'm such a different person than
yeah,
what I was then. And it's because that's part of the aspect of the records that I love so well is because I can work on myself. I can heal what's going on with me
yeah,
through the information I receive, whether, I follow a different pathway of doing the absolute end results. It gives me the knowledge I need in order to take and heal whatever's taken place
yeah.
and to release the beliefs, to release the filters. That's what makes the difference between a good consultant and an excellent consultant. Is how much inner work you have really truly done on yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And, and then it also jumps into how much mind control,
Yes.
in which you understand, becoming intuitive
Yeah.
and being able to, especially if you've ever been to a spirit fair, you understand, that whoever's interpreting the information, if they jump into their mind and the mind creates the
Mhm.
answer,
Yeah. Yeah.
then that's not exactly what. And so, again, what makes a difference between a practitioner and an excellent practitioner?
Yes. Yes. And we really work with I work with my students, and I think all my other teachers do when we're teaching this, is to teach people to move into the awareness of what's going on within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Are you bringing the information through a filter? If it is, you need to clear that filter so it doesn't interfere. When I receive an information from the records, it's not my job to interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
It's my job to give it to you as purely as I receive it. And if I'm not comfortable with that, ask for another way so it will still be purely given.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it too often we get caught up. People get caught up and they want to interpret, and that's the worst thing possible, because what something means to me may mean something entirely different to you.
Absolutely. And again, whoever is receiving the information, the person that's sitting in front of me, where
Yes.
is their mind? And this was something I learned at the very beginning of this process.
Yes.
I can see something in my head and this is what this means. And then that person says, yeah, I get it. This is what it means. And I was like, oh, no,
Oh,
that's not anything.
what I
No,
thought.
no. Okay, we'll leave it there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of the things about our training is we have what we call grace points to assist us in the moment clearing ourselves immediately by calling forth the grace of the Creator to
Yeah.
clear whatever is going on so we can stay centered. It's very important to be in absolute neutrality,
Mhm.
just absolute neutrality when you do a reading for someone.
And and what's so I found that's so interesting too is that like when I'm doing a class, I'll have a subject and I'm like, I always ask the records to give me the subject. I was like,
Yeah.
really? I got to do this again? I don't want to do this. And I let them pick my guides pick the topic. And I also ask them to provide the questions and they'll give me the questions. And I was like, oh, I know the answer to this.
Yeah.
And then I'll
Yeah.
get in the class and my mouth starts moving and these words, it's like my brain is like, oh, this is what they're going to say. And then it's like, okay, wait a minute. That's not what my mouth is saying. What is happening here? But again, it's that understanding of how to get out of that head and just
Yeah.
let that information just to come through without trying to control it or judge it or, can basically just control whatever's being said.
Yeah.
But that's the key. I think that where again an excellent practitioner understands how to release that
Yeah.
control
Yeah. Definitely.
from it. Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I'll be in a class going, well, that is not the answer I was expecting.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this is fun. I have no idea what they're talking about. I just learned something new. So the other question that I have, because, I have found that, like for me, the messages that my guides give me are so love oriented,
Yes.
and it's all about the growth, and it's
Yeah.
all about the shifting and the raising up. Have you found that other Akashic practitioners, I don't know why I'm calling it that, because
Yes. No
my
problem.
guides just said that, but other people that receive information from the channel, from the Akashic records, maybe they are more um, geared towards different areas of life, like more of the galactic type or more of Atlantis information or more towards other things. Have you found that that's the case?
I don't find it the case. I find there are a select few that will do that. They resonate better. Like I had one student that loved to work with land, but that was before she ever came into the records. And we spoke about this earlier. They meet you where you're at. Her love was in the land, so that's where they met her at.
Mm.
So she worked a lot with the records in the land. Um, I don't I don't find that I specialize, and I don't. Well, I take that back. I have one student that really specializes in music and song.
Oh.
So there are those. I don't myself specialize. There are questions I will not answer.
Mm-hmm.
So don't ask me when you're going to die because
Yeah. It's the way I am too. It's like, I'm not telling you, sorry. I'm not answering this question.
and that's a personal preference. It's not
Yeah.
that the information's not there. It's certainly there. I'm not going to give that to you.
And yeah, and you and I both know why we're not,
Yes.
and I understand because I get asked that question too, and that is that point of understanding. I think it's in your best interest to hold off of that answer. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna provide this information.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious enough and open enough that I want to receive whatever information a person's going to ask me about.
Mm-hmm.
I've had clients come to me and everything they asked was cosmically aligned.
Mm-hmm.
It had nothing to do with their life. It has to do with the cosmos. And I was so thrilled. I mean, I literally was an electric ball by the time I finished because I was so excited about getting asked those types of questions and
Yeah.
being able to gift her with those answers because it is indeed a gift.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't specialize in any one subject.
Yeah, and I was just kind of curious if do you think that I have my own Akashic guides, or do you think it's random, like
Oh
whoever comes forward whenever I need them, or
no, you have your own. You
okay.
have your own.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's been my experience. You
Okay.
have your own, and they all have different personalities.
Hmm.
So, like I said, they give you your information wherever you're at and what you're ready to receive and how you're ready to receive it.
Hmm.
We're all individuals. That's different for each and every one of us.
Good. Do you think that that people? Do you think people? I'm going to get it out in just a second.
Okay.
Basically, can anybody channel the Akashic records?
Um, that's a very good question. In all my years of teaching, I've only had one student not be able to open the records with a prayer. And when I opened his records and asked why, it was because he made a vow in a past life not to.
Hmm.
And he chose to honor that vow.
Interesting.
I've not had anyone else in my years of teaching that were not able to receive information in one manner or another.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's how I always felt too. I think that anybody can do it. We're all intuitive beings.
Yes.
We all have the ability. It's just depending on how cooperative we are.
How much do you want it?
Yeah, yeah. And how much do you want to let the head control it?
Yes.
Which, some of us, again, are better than others. And I think that the way that
Yeah.
you teach, helps and allows and gives people an understanding of how to separate from the mind and allow the information to be
Yes.
absorbed,
Yes.
Yeah. Um,
Definitely.
so, what do you think is the most important message that the Akashic guides, field master? I keep calling them guides now. I'm
Yeah.
second. I'm sorry.
How got you stuck on it, right?
Well, I just like I always hated to call hated. I didn't mean to say that. I always was hesitant in calling them masters to the general public because
Yes.
I didn't know if people would understand that term.
Right.
And
Yes.
so I've kind of got in the habit of just calling them guides, even
Yeah.
though we know that there's a difference.
Right.
So I'm sorry.
Just a label. It's just a
Yeah,
label.
it's a
Yeah.
label. But
Yeah.
okay, so let me go back to my question. What do you think is the most important part of, or the aspect of the Akashic field that you feel that you would want to share with others?
Oh, that's a big question. I think to get clarity in who you are divinely is, oh, the hair standing up all over. It's absolutely one of the most important things that we can receive right now for ourselves, because the society teaches us to discount ourselves. Self love is such a challenge for people, and we have so many negative overlays placed on ourselves because of our parents or our societies. And it's not blaming, it's just that's the way this society is set up. But to be able to step into your own divinity in a way that you recognize and accept it will change your life forever. You will never live your life the same way. You will make choices from the higher path. You'll take the high road instead of the low road.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is what will change the dynamics of this dimension now.
Mm-hmm. So, is there anything else that you feel that you, I'm losing my words. I think they're tapping in, and what they're
Yeah.
wanting to say is what is it that you feel needs to be shared that hasn't been shared today?
Ah. Well, the major thing, and it's already been shared, is the amount of love that is within the dynamics of the records, and how that can assist you in your life, because we tend to keep it separate. But this is about how it can assist you in your life and utilize it to move forward in your life differently. So that love is the highest aspect to go forward in. So
I think that that's a good way to end this. I'm honored, and I feel privileged, and thank you so much for sharing this knowledge, and for expanding the definition of what the
yes,
Akashic field is, and which again I think is so important to be able to help people understand how important this field is, and the love that resides within it that
yes,
we can't seem to understand in this human body.
yes, yes. If you think you know what love is, trust me when I say you really don't know what it is until you've experienced being loved when you're in the Akashic Records.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, we kind of tapped in a little bit to what you offer. Can you give us a better definition or an explanation of everything that you offer us?
Okay. I am a teacher. as well as the consultant of the Akashic Records. I am co-manager of a very small international school that certifies people to be consultants and teachers. So I can teach you the records. I can do consultations. I also do, it's a quantum technique that I've titled Waters of Illumination. And we touched a little bit on that today when we commented about beliefs and blocks and filters and stuff. And I've received the ability to go into a person's energy field and on a quantum level, be able to tap into those beliefs and blocks and remove them using the the Messiah's energy and Mary Magdalene's energy. So that's another aspect of what I do. So, and I love my work.
Nice. And so how do people contact you?
So they can email me. It's it's Rosemarie at rosemarieswanson.com.
Okay.
Or they can call me 843-991-0831.
Nice. And thank you again. Thank you,
Oh,
thank you, thank you.
always. It's special to be able to sit here and speak with you.
It's an honor. Okay, we'll see you guys next time.
Okay.